The wind howled across the barren alien plains. The ground was broken and burned from years of endless war. Smoke curled into the air, carrying the bitter smell of metal and ash. Daniel, a human explorer assigned to the outpost, walked carefully through the ruins. His orders were simple: observe, record, and never interfere. But orders often mean little when life itself is bleeding out before you. As he stepped into the broken corridor of an abandoned structure, he froze. There, lying against the wall, was a small alien child. Her skin shimmered faintly with pale silver patterns, but her face was pale and lifeless. Her eyes, large and luminous, were half closed. She was breathing, but each breath was shallow, broken, and painful. Daniel's heart clenched. He had seen suffering before, but never a child this helpless. The girl reached out a trembling hand, her voice barely a whisper. The words were in a language he could not understand, yet the plea was clear. She was dying. Daniel ran forward and knelt beside her. His fingers pressed gently to her neck, searching for a pulse. Weak. Almost gone. He pulled out his communicator, shouting for medical help. Within minutes, alien medics rushed into the room. Their armor gleamed under the flickering lights. They carried strange devices, unlike any human tools. One medic scanned the child with a handheld device and shook his head. "Her blood is failing," he said in a sharp alien tone. Another replied coldly, "She needs pure blood of our kind. There is no other way. Nothing else can save her." Daniel's chest tightened. He looked at the child again, her tiny hands still reaching for him. Her lips moved, but only a faint sound came out. No one stepped forward. The medics lowered their heads, already preparing to leave. To them, the girl was lost. Daniel stood, anger burning in his chest. "You're just going to let her die?" he demanded. The aliens stared at him with blank, unreadable faces. "No one here can help," one answered flatly. "Without the right blood, her body will collapse. That is the law of nature." Law of nature. Daniel's jaw tightened. He thought of his own sister back on Earth, how fragile she had once been when sickness nearly took her. He remembered the fear in his parents' eyes, the desperate hope when doctors had tried one last treatment. If someone had turned their back then, his sister would not have survived. Daniel's decision came fast, like fire in his veins. "Take mine," he said. His voice shook, but his eyes were firm. The medics blinked in confusion. "Human blood?" one asked with disbelief. "It is not compatible. It may kill her faster." Daniel swallowed hard. "Or it might give her a chance. You said she will die anyway. Then let me try. Use my blood." Silence fell across the room. The aliens exchanged uneasy looks. One of them muttered about sacrilege. Another hissed that their queen would never allow it. But Daniel ignored them all. He removed the glove from his hand and rolled up his sleeve, showing his bare arm. "Hook me up," he said. "Now." The medics hesitated. Finally, one sighed and prepared the machine. A thin tube was connected from Daniel's arm to the child's. The moment the first drops of his blood entered her veins, a low hum filled the air. The alien machines flickered strangely, as though sensing something unusual. Daniel clenched his teeth as the blood drained from him. His vision swam, but he kept his eyes locked on the girl. Her small chest rose slowly. Her lips twitched, as if fighting to form words. Then, suddenly, her eyes opened wide. They glowed a brilliant shade of silver blue, brighter than before. She turned her gaze to Daniel, staring at him as though she saw straight into his soul. The medics gasped in shock. "Impossible," one whispered. "She responds?" Daniel's heart pounded. The girl's fingers curled around his hand, gripping weakly but with intent. She whispered a single word. Daniel did not understand the meaning, but the sound was haunting, filled with ancient weight. It was as if she had spoken his name without ever knowing it. The room fell silent, all eyes fixed on the impossible sight. A human bloodline, flowing through an alien child. And then, before Daniel could ask what had happened, the doors of the medbase slammed open. Tall shadows filled the entrance. Warriors clad in black armor marched inside, their weapons gleaming. At their center strode a figure taller than all, her presence commanding silence. Her skin carried the same silver patterns as the child, but her gaze burned like fire. The child let out a faint cry, reaching toward the woman. Daniel turned his head and realized who she must be. The mother. The queen of this alien people. Her piercing eyes locked on Daniel, on the blood flowing from his body into her daughter's veins. Rage twisted her face. She stepped forward, her voice echoing like thunder. "What have you done to my child?" The medbay grew cold as silence wrapped around the room. Every alien medic dropped to one knee the moment the towering figure stepped inside. Her presence was overwhelming, like a storm carried within flesh. The air itself seemed to bow to her. The queen's silver-lined skin glimmered under the lights, her tall frame cloaked in armor that looked forged from black glass and living fire. Her long eyes burned like molten stars. She was both terrifying and beautiful, every movement filled with power. The guards around her lowered their weapons in respect, but their sharp gazes never left Daniel. Daniel's arm was still tied to the machine, his blood running into the child. Sweat dotted his forehead. His vision wavered, but he did not let go of the girl's small hand. The child stirred weakly, lifting her other hand toward the queen. Her lips trembled. A single word escaped, a word Daniel could not understand, but it carried love, longing, and relief. The queen's expression froze. Her fury cracked for just an instant, replaced by raw fear. She rushed forward with surprising speed, dropping beside the bed. Her armored fingers brushed her daughter's cheek as if she were afraid the child would vanish like smoke. But then her eyes shifted back to Daniel. Cold. Piercing. Deadly. "What have you done to her?" Her voice was thunder. Daniel swallowed. His mouth was dry, but he forced himself to answer. "I gave her my blood. She was dying. You weren't here. No one else would help." The queen's face twisted in shock and disgust. "Your blood? Human blood?" Her hand clenched tightly, the air vibrating as though the walls themselves feared her wrath. "You dared poison her veins?" The medics trembled. One tried to speak but faltered under her glare. Another whispered, "Your Majesty, forgive us." He insisted. "We believed the child was already lost." Daniel's heart raced. He was surrounded, defenseless, yet something inside him pushed back against the weight of her rage. "She was dying," he repeated firmly. "If I hadn't acted, you would be standing here over a corpse. She's alive because of me." The queen's burning gaze locked with his. For a long, suffocating moment, the room seemed to hold its breath. Daniel's knees wanted to buckle, but he stayed upright, refusing to bow. Then the child coughed. A weak, broken sound, but life was in it. Her eyes opened again, glowing faintly as she looked between her mother and Daniel. The queen's fury faltered. Her lips parted as she stared at her daughter's glowing eyes, stronger than before. The impossible truth was undeniable. The human's blood had saved her. Gasps spread among the medics. One whispered, "It should not be possible." Another muttered, "He broke the laws of nature." The queen slowly rose to her full height. Her shadow fell across Daniel, cold and immense. She circled him like a predator testing prey. Her daughter's small fingers still clung to his, as if afraid to let go. "Tell me your name, human," the queen demanded. "Daniel," he said quietly, though his voice carried. Her eyes narrowed, studying him as though peeling away his soul. "Daniel," she repeated, the sound of his name foreign and sharp on her tongue. "You gave blood that was not asked for. You crossed into what is forbidden. You touched what no outsider has ever touched." Her hand shot forward, seizing his chin. She tilted his face up so that their eyes met. Daniel's breath caught. Her eyes were fire, yet beneath the flame there was something else. Fear. Desperation. And something older, an instinct carved deep into her people's bones. She leaned close. "Do you know what you have done?" Daniel's heart pounded. "I saved a life. That's all I know," For a long moment she studied him in silence. Then, with a voice that echoed like judgment itself, she declared, "From this moment you belong to me." The words dropped like blades into the air. The medics bowed their heads deeper. The guards slammed their weapons against the floor in agreement. Daniel's blood ran cold. "What?" he whispered. The Queen straightened, her expression unreadable. "My daughter breathes because of you. In our law, a debt of life cannot be broken. The one who saves what is mine becomes mine in return." The child stirred again, her glowing eyes fixed on Daniel, whispering softly as if she already believed it true. Daniel tried to pull his hand away, but the child refused to release him. The Queen's eyes narrowed as if testing his resistance. "You will come with me, human," she said, her voice calm now, almost soft. "You gave blood. You will give more. You have tied yourself to us. There is no turning back." Daniel's mind raced. He had acted only to save a child. He had not asked for honor, or chains, or whatever this strange law meant. Yet the eyes of the Queen and her people were upon him. His every breath now carried weight beyond his understanding. The medics disconnected the machine, but the bond between him and the child remained, her hand clutching his, her small voice whispering his name in her tongue. Daniel's chest tightened as realization struck him. He had stepped into something far larger than himself. And in the eyes of the Queen, he saw a storm gathering. The Queen turned to her guards, her voice carrying across the chamber. "Take him to the throne hall. The human will face his fate before all." The throne hall was vast, built of black stone and glowing veins of silver light that pulsed like living stars. Pillars rose high into the ceiling, carved with images of war, birth, and blood. At the center stood a massive throne, carved from one single shard of crystal. It seemed older than the world itself. Daniel was marched forward by alien guards. Their armor hissed with every step, their sharp weapons aimed at his back. He stumbled once, still weak from giving blood, but the child's small fingers clung to his sleeve. She had refused to leave his side, forcing the guards to allow her alone. Her glowing eyes watched him with trust that weighed heavier than chains. At the throne, the Queen sat tall and silent. Her gaze followed his every move. Behind her stood elders, ancient aliens with skin like cracked stone, their eyes deep with judgment. The air inside the chamber was heavy, every breath Daniel took pressing against the weight of 1,000 unseen laws. The Queen raised her hand. The guards froze, and the hall fell silent. "This is Daniel," she said, her voice echoing across the walls. "The human who poured his blood into my child. She lives because of him. He crossed the line of our law. He has changed what should never change." A ripple of whispers filled the chamber. Elders hissed in anger. Some warriors pounded their fists against their chests in respect. One elder stepped forward, his voice sharp. "This cannot be allowed. Human blood defiles the sacred line. The child should be cleansed. The outsider must die before his corruption spreads." Daniel stiffened. The words were foreign, but the tone made the meaning clear. His heart raced. The Queen did not move. Her eyes remained locked on him, fire against ice. Then she spoke. "You speak of death, but look at her." She gestured to her daughter. "She is alive. She breathes. She smiles. Would you kill her to preserve your pride?" The child pressed herself closer to Daniel, gripping his hand tighter. Her small voice rose, speaking words he could not understand but filled with pleading. Another elder shouted. "The debt is dangerous. A human cannot carry it. He is unworthy." The Queen's hand clenched on the arm of her throne. "Unworthy?" Her voice thundered. "He risked himself while you all stood aside. You spoke of laws, of purity, of letting her die. He acted. He chose life. Tell me, who is unworthy now?" The chamber fell into silence again. Daniel swallowed, his mouth dry. He could not read their culture, but he understood the weight pressing down on him. He had stepped into something far beyond a simple rescue. The Queen rose from her throne. Her armor gleamed in the silver light, each step echoing like the tread of destiny. She stopped before him, tall and overwhelming. Slowly, she lowered her hand and touched the side of her daughter's head, then turned her gaze back to Daniel. In our law, she said, her tone heavy with finality, a life saved is a bond. The one who saves becomes bound. My daughter lives because of you. You are now tied to her, to me, to my people. This bond cannot be broken. Daniel's breath caught. I didn't ask for that, he said quietly. The Queen's eyes softened slightly, but only slightly. It was not yours to ask. It was given the moment your blood flowed into her veins. He shook his head, confusion and fear twisting inside him. I just wanted to save her. I didn't mean for this. Her eyes narrowed, though not in anger. Intent does not erase what has been done. In our law, your debt is greater than your will. The hall murmured in agreement. Warriors bowed their heads. Elders muttered with unease. The child, her voice weak but clear, tugged at Daniel's arm. She spoke in her language again, but this time her tone carried a single sound he recognized, his name. Daniel froze. The way she said it was not foreign at all. She had shaped his name with her alien tongue as if she had always known it. The Queen's expression shifted. For the first time, a crack appeared in her mask of steel. She looked at her daughter, then at him, as if she too had heard something greater than words. She stepped closer, lowering her voice so only he could hear. If you gave your blood for my daughter, she whispered, her tone both fierce and strange, then you would give more. You would give your seed for my people. Daniel's chest went cold. His mind reeled. The meaning was clear, brutal, and terrifying. He pulled back, his voice shaking. What? No, I never agreed to that. The Queen did not flinch. It is not a choice. It is the law of blood. You are now part of us. You carry what we need. The chamber erupted. Elders shouted in protest, some demanding execution, others demanding celebration. Warriors slammed their fists to their chests in acceptance. The child clung tighter to him, her glowing eyes filled with trust that crushed his heart. Daniel's vision swam as the weight of it all pressed down. He was no longer just an explorer, no longer just a human passing through alien war. He had become a bond, a bridge, a key. And deep inside, he realized there was no way back. The Queen raised her hand, silencing the hall. Her voice was final, cutting through the chaos. I claim him. Daniel is mine. And through him, our future begins. The throne hall trembled with voices. Elders argued in rage, warriors clashed their fists to their armor, and the Queen's declaration echoed like thunder. Daniel stood at the center of it all, his body weak from blood loss, his heart pounding with confusion and fear. The child clung to him, her glowing eyes watching every face in the chamber. To her, there was no debate, no law, only the man who had kept her alive. But the elders saw only chaos. One rose, his skin lined with cracks of age and authority. His voice was like stone grinding against stone. This is madness. A human cannot be bonded to the royal line. To bind his blood with ours would stain us forever. Another hissed, pointing a twisted finger at Daniel. Kill him now. Break the bond before it spreads. The warriors growled, divided. Some lifted their weapons toward Daniel, others lowered their heads in respect. The hall shook with division. Daniel swallowed hard. His throat was dry. He wanted to shout, to explain, to make them understand, but the Queen raised her hand. Instantly, silence returned, heavy and suffocating. Her voice was calm, but every word cut like a blade. You all speak of purity. You all speak of law. Yet not one of you gave your blood when my daughter lay dying. You would have let her fade. But he did not. Her words slammed into the elders like strikes of a hammer. The child whimpered softly and pressed closer to Daniel's side. The Queen stepped down from her throne, her tall frame casting a shadow over him. Her eyes burned, but beneath the fire was something else, a need, sharp and unyielding. She stopped so close that Daniel could feel the heat of her presence. When you gave your blood, she said, her voice low but heavy with meaning. "You gave more than life. You gave a path. And now, by law and by blood, you must give again." Daniel's heart skipped. "No," he whispered. "I saved her because it was right, not because I wanted this." The Queen tilted her head. "You think you have a choice? My people are dying, human. Our sons are few. Our blood thins each year. You carry something we cannot ignore." Her voice rose, carrying across the chamber. "I demand his seed. He will join with me, and through him, our line will endure." Gasps spread like wildfire. Elders shouted in outrage. Warriors stared in shock. Some dropped to one knee in approval, while others cursed his name. Daniel's legs felt weak. His mind spun. He had expected anger, maybe death, but not this. Not the Queen herself demanding something so raw, so final. He tried to speak, his voice breaking. "I'm not one of you. I don't even understand your world. You can't force this." The Queen's gaze sharpened, but there was no cruelty, only an unshakable certainty. "You are already one of us. Your blood flows in my daughter's veins. Whether you will it or not, you are bound." The chamber erupted again. Some shouted that he was chosen by the stars. Others cried blasphemy. A young warrior even stepped forward, spitting at Daniel's feet. "He is weak. He bleeds too easily. He is not fit to stand beside our Queen." Daniel's fists clenched. He wanted to scream that he never asked for any of this. But then he felt the small weight of the child's hand in his. Her soft voice rose above the storm of voices, speaking his name again. Just one word, but it silenced him. The Queen turned to her people, lifting her arm. "Enough!" she commanded. The chamber fell still. Her eyes swept across the elders, then the warriors, her voice cutting like fire. "You call him weak, yet none of you bled for her. You call him unworthy, yet the child clings to him, not to you. This is not weakness. This is strength none of you could show." She turned back to Daniel. Her eyes met his, softer now but unyielding. "I claimed you because law demands it. But hear me, human, this is not only law. It is survival. With you, my people may yet live. Without you, we fade into dust." Daniel's chest tightened. He looked at the child, her glowing eyes filled with trust, and then at the Queen, whose fierce mask now carried a crack of desperation. He shook his head slowly, his voice trembling. "I can't promise anything. I don't even know if it's possible." The Queen's lips curved, not into a smile, but into something between sorrow and steel. "Then we will find out." The Queen raised her arm high and declared for all to hear. "From this day forward he is my mate. Any who stand against it, stand against me." The warriors slammed their weapons against the floor, their voices rising in unison. The elders hissed with fury, but none dared oppose her openly. And Daniel stood frozen, caught between two worlds, his future no longer his own. The days that followed were heavy with silence and tension. Daniel was no longer treated as a visitor or an outsider. Everywhere he walked through the alien city, eyes followed him, some with awe, others with hatred. Warriors bowed their heads slightly as he passed, though many clenched their jaws in anger. Elders whispered behind his back, their voices filled with doubt and fear. But the child, she followed him everywhere. Her small hands slipped into his whenever she could. She laughed when he tried to speak her language, though she also tried to teach him, pointing at things with glowing eyes and repeating simple words until he understood. Her trust was unshakable, a bright spark in a world that felt darker by the day. The Queen, however, was different. She did not laugh. She did not soften. She watched Daniel with a gaze that was part judgment, part study. Sometimes she seemed ready to command him. Other times, her eyes lingered as if she herself was uncertain what she wanted. Daniel spent nights staring at the alien sky, wondering how everything had gone so wrong. He had only wanted to save a child. Now he was being claimed as a mate, pulled into a culture that demanded things he could not understand. One evening, he was led into the great chamber of scholars. There, Alien scientists scanned his blood, their strange machines humming like living creatures. Their long fingers tapped against crystal panels as glowing symbols shifted in the air. One of them turned to the Queen with excitement. His blood does not kill. It binds. Human cells fuse with ours, strengthening them. This has never been seen before. Another hissed. This is dangerous. If his blood spreads, we lose what makes us pure. The Queen silenced them both with a wave of her hand. Her eyes locked on Daniel. You are not just human anymore. You are a bridge. Do you understand? Daniel's throat was dry. He wanted to deny it, but deep inside, he remembered the child's glowing eyes, brighter since his blood had touched hers. He remembered how she had whispered his name, as if it had become part of her very breath. I didn't ask to be a bridge, he muttered. The Queen's gaze sharpened. Neither did I ask to lose my people. Yet here we stand. Her words cut him. She carried the weight of a dying race on her shoulders. And now, somehow, that weight had been placed on him too. Later that night, Daniel stood on the balcony outside his chambers. The city stretched below him, towers of black crystal glowing with silver veins, streets alive with warriors and merchants, fires burning in the distance from battles not far away. He felt caught between two worlds. His own people would never understand this place. And these aliens, they saw him as salvation, or corruption, or both. The child padded out onto the balcony, her small feet making no sound. She tugged on his sleeve and spoke softly, repeating words in her tongue until finally, he understood. Home. She pointed to the stars, then to him, then to herself. Home. Daniel's chest tightened. To her, he was already part of her world. But the peace of that moment was broken by a sudden alarm. The air filled with the blare of horns. Warriors rushed through the streets, weapons raised. Flames flared on the horizon. The Queen stormed onto the balcony, her armor flashing silver in the starlight. Her voice was sharp. They come. The rival clans. They know of the bond. They will take her. And they will kill you to end it. Daniel's blood ran cold. The child clung to him, her tiny fingers shaking. He looked at the Queen, then back to the fires spreading across the distant ridge. Then we have to protect her, he said firmly. The Queen's eyes narrowed, studying him. For the first time, she gave a small nod. You fight with us, then. Prove to my people that you are more than blood in her veins. Daniel's heart pounded. He had never trained as a soldier. He was an explorer, not a warrior. But looking at the child's fearful eyes, he knew he could not step back. The Queen extended a weapon to him, a blade that shimmered with light. Heavy in his grip, alive with strange energy, it felt as though it carried centuries of battles. Daniel swallowed hard, his hands trembling. But he raised the blade. The Queen turned toward the city gates, her voice thundering. They come for war. Let them find us ready. Let them find the humans standing at my side. The warriors roared in answer, their voices shaking the night sky. Daniel stood among them, the alien child clutching his arm, knowing that from this moment forward, his place between two worlds would be decided in blood. The city shook with the sound of drums. Alien horns wailed through the night, calling every warrior to arms. From the high balcony, Daniel could see the rival faction advancing, dark figures across the plain, their banners lit by fire. Their ships hovered above like predators, ready to strike. Inside the city, warriors rushed to the walls, their armor gleaming silver against the flames. The Queen stood at the front, her black glass armor glowing with power, her tall frame unshaken. Behind her, Daniel stood with the alien child clutching his hand. He had never felt so out of place, yet never more certain that he could not walk away. The Queen turned to him. They do not come for the city, she said. They come for her. Her gaze dropped to the child, who pressed closer to Daniel's side. And they will kill you first, so the bond dies with you. Daniel's throat tightened. His grip on the alien blade trembled. He had never fought in a war. He was an explorer, a wanderer, a man who asked questions, not one who carried weapons. But now, fate had thrown him here. The queen studied his shaking hands and stepped closer. Her voice softened just enough for only him to hear. Courage is not the absence of fear, human. It is standing anyway. Her words struck him deeper than steel. He nodded slowly, swallowing his fear. The gates opened, and the battle began. The rival warriors poured in like a black tide, their weapons glowing red, their war cries piercing the air. The queen's soldiers roared back, silver against crimson, the clash of blades ringing out like thunder. Sparks lit the sky as ships above exchanged blasts of fire. Daniel stayed close to the queen and the child, his heart hammering. When the first enemy warrior lunged at him, his body moved on instinct. He raised the blade, blocking the strike. The force shook his arms, nearly knocking him down, but the queen's voice barked behind him. Stand! He did. He shoved forward, slashing clumsily, but enough to drive the attacker back. Blood, black and smoking, splashed the ground. The alien warrior fell. Daniel gasped. His hands shook, but his feet held firm. The child clung tighter, whispering his name. The queen's eyes flicked to him during the chaos, surprise flashing across her fierce face. She had expected him to fall. But he stood. More enemies came. Daniel fought awkwardly, but desperation gave him strength. Each time he faltered, the thought of the child's trust burned in his chest. Each time his arms weakened, the queen's voice cut through the chaos like steel. Again! Rise! Do not fall! The battle raged across the city. Fire tore through the streets. The clash of steel filled the night. Warriors screamed as they fell, their blood glowing like molten silver. Daniel's body burned with exhaustion, but he pushed forward, step after step, protecting the child at all costs. Then came the moment he feared. A massive rival warlord broke through the lines, taller, broader, his armor blackened with fire. His eyes locked on Daniel, filled with hatred. He roared, lifting a massive blade. Daniel froze. The warlord charged. The queen leapt forward, intercepting the strike. Steel rang against steel, sparks lighting the night as they clashed. She fought with fury, but the warlord was powerful, each blow shaking the ground. Daniel pulled the child behind him, watching helplessly. The queen's blade struck fast, but the warlord drove her back with brute strength. Then, with a thunderous strike, he knocked her down. Daniel's heart stopped. The queen fell to one knee, her weapon clattering against the stones. The warlord raised his blade high, ready to finish her. And without thinking, Daniel moved. He threw himself between them, his alien blade raised. The warlord's strike came down like a falling mountain. The force ripped through Daniel's arms, sending pain through every nerve. But he held. He held. The child screamed his name, her voice breaking through the roar of battle. The warlord snarled, pressing harder. Daniel's knees buckled. His vision blurred. He knew he could not hold forever. Then the queen rose, fury blazing in her eyes. She struck from the side, her blade slicing deep into the warlord's chest. With a roar, the giant fell, his black blood hissing against the stone. But Daniel collapsed too. The strike had torn through him, cutting deep across his side. Blood spilled, warm and heavy. His vision dimmed. The child knelt beside him, her glowing eyes filled with tears. Her small hands pressed against his wound as if she could hold his life inside him. The queen dropped to his other side. For the first time, her voice broke, not with command, but with fear. "Daniel!" she cried. "Do not leave!" He tried to smile, his lips trembling. I promised. I'd protect her." Darkness closed in, the sounds of battle fading into silence. Daniel's world went black as the queen screamed his name into the fire-filled sky. Daniel awoke to silence. The first thing he felt was warmth, not the fire of battle, but the soft glow of healing light. Strange energy coursed through his body, repairing torn flesh, knitting broken veins. He tried to sit up, but pain flared through his side, forcing him back. Slowly, his vision cleared. He lay inside a chamber of crystal and silver, its walls pulsing with soft light. Beside him, The alien child sat curled on a chair, her small hand resting against his arm. She was asleep, her breathing steady, her glowing eyes closed in peace. At the foot of the bed stood the queen. Her armor was gone, replaced by flowing robes that shimmered like the night sky. For the first time since he had met her, she did not look like a warrior or a ruler. She looked like a mother who had nearly lost everything. Her voice was quiet when she spoke. "You should be dead." Daniel coughed, his throat dry. "Not the first time someone said that to me." Her lips twitched, almost a smile, though it vanished as quickly as it came. She stepped closer, her gaze locked on him. "You bled for her again. You stood when no one else could. You protected me." Daniel tried to push himself up again, and this time, he managed. He looked at her with tired eyes. "I didn't do it for laws. Or for thrones. I did it because she needed me. Because you needed me." The queen's fiery eyes softened. For a long time, she said nothing. Then she lowered herself to one knee beside his bed. "I demanded you because of duty. Because of survival. But when you stood against death itself, you became more than duty. You became part of us." The child stirred, waking at the sound of voices. She blinked her glowing eyes open and saw Daniel sitting upright. With a cry of joy, she leapt into his arms. Her small body pressed against him, her voice whispering his name again and again as if afraid he might vanish. Daniel held her close, his chest tightening. For all the chaos, all the fear, all the blood, this moment felt worth it. The queen watched, silent. Then she spoke softly, almost uncertainly. "She calls you father now." Daniel froze, his breath catching. He looked down at the child, who nodded as if to prove the queen's words. Her tiny arms clung tighter, her glowing eyes filled with love. "I'm not," he began, but the queen cut him off. "You are," she said firmly. "Not by blood alone, but by choice. By bond. She has chosen you. And so have I." Daniel's heart pounded. He stared at the queen, trying to read her expression. For once, there was no fire, no mask of command. Only truth. Only a woman standing between duty and desire. She reached out, her hand brushing his. "I claimed you because law demanded it. But now I ask not as a queen, not as a leader, but as a woman. Will you stay? Will you stand with us, not as prisoner, not as tool, but as one of us?" The question hung in the air like a fragile thread. Daniel looked from her to the child, who stared up at him with hope shining in her eyes. He thought of Earth far away, a home that had never truly felt like his. He thought of the bond he had never asked for, but could no longer deny. And he realized something. In saving them, he had found something he himself had always needed, a place, a purpose, a family. He smiled faintly, his voice low but steady. "Yes. I'll stay." The queen's eyes closed, and for the first time, her shoulders eased. She let out a breath that sounded like the release of 1,000 burdens. When she opened her eyes again, they glowed not only with fire, but with warmth. The child squealed with joy, hugging him tighter. The queen touched his shoulder gently, her voice carrying a promise. "Then you are no longer Daniel the outsider. You are Daniel of our blood. Daniel of two worlds." Outside, the city roared with victory. The rival faction had been broken, their leaders driven away. Warriors cheered the queen's name, and whispers of the human who had stood at her side spread like wildfire. But inside the crystal chamber, it was quiet. Quiet enough for Daniel to feel the truth of what had happened. He was no longer between worlds. He was the bridge. He was the bond. He was theirs. And as he looked at the queen and her daughter, the mother fierce and unyielding, the child bright and unbreakable, Daniel finally felt what he had never known before. He was home. The queen lowered her forehead to his, a gesture of her people's deepest vow. "Together," she whispered. Daniel nodded, holding the child close, his voice barely more than a breath. "Together."